Welcome to West Shore Unitarian Universalist Church, a spiritual community whose hope is audacious and whose vision is for a more equitable and just world for all. I'm Reverend Anthony McCarr, senior minister of this amazing community, and joining me are Dave Blazer, music director, Megan Ross, director of religious education and engagement, Grace Durfee, worship associate, and Christine Solanti, Larry Wise, and Michael Hockman, who are our wonderful tech folks making this live stream possible. Together, we are pleased to invite you into this space, which is connecting people in Cleveland and beyond to our welcoming community. Often the world is not so welcoming. Often the values of the world are neither loving nor just. So, may this worship hour be one in which our souls are fed by a wisdom and a passion that remind us that life does not have to be that way, that there exists a larger love in every human heart urging us on to what is better. Let this larger love move in our midst this morning. May each of us be touched and changed by it. A special welcome to you if you are a newcomer to our community, gay or straight, cisgender or transgender, black, brown, or white, you are welcome. Our West Shore regulars would love to greet you and will do so if you indicate on the Facebook chat that you are new or relatively new. If you happen to have any questions and would like to chat with someone, West Shore's Member and Engagement Coordinator, Diane Elkhorn, would love to reach out. Diane's email address is being added to your Facebook chat as we speak. We have a couple of announcements for you this morning from Megan.
Good morning. I have just a few announcements for you today. The first is about our Valentine's Day cards. If you picked up a kit or maybe a few kits this week and haven't put your cards together yet, please join us for an all-ages Zoom card making party today during coffee hour. Just use the coffee hour link, and then if you want to make cards together, we'll be in a special breakout room. All you need is your kit, some glue, a pen, maybe some markers or crayons to add your own pizzazz. There's still about 10 kits left here at church. They're in a bin outside the east entrance. So if you didn't get a chance to pick up a kit and would like to, you're more than welcome to stop by. Please mail your kits by tomorrow or Tuesday at the latest so they arrive to folks by Valentine's Day. My next announcement is about a special sleepover that will be happening here at the church. We're all missing church, but since it's not safe to be together yet, we're opening our building to our animal surrogates for a special intergen Stuffies sleepover. Stuffed animals have a natural immunity to COVID, so your stuffy or doll or action figure will be perfectly safe to come here and enjoy all of West Shore spaces for you. Your stuffed animal will have a check-in and stories, some games, a building tour, and a special front row seat during Sunday morning service. If it's nice out, we might even go play on the playground. So here's how it works. You can pre-register your stuffy using the link in the e-news, or just register your stuffy when you drop him, her, them off on Friday, February 26th, or Saturday morning, February 27th. I just checked the registrations this morning, and we already have 2 stuffies registered, Kiva and Bunny, so I hope your stuffy can join them. We'll be taking lots of pictures of the sleepover and posting them on Facebook, and on Sunday morning, February 28th, humans are welcome to come pick up their stuffed animal friends. If you'd like more information, please contact me. And my last announcement is that Grace Durfee has started a new connection circle that meets on the last Tuesday of every month at 10 o'clock in the morning. There is still room in this connection circle, so if you've been considering joining one, please contact Diane Elkhorn. The orientation for this group is actually this week, so if you're interested or have questions, contact Diane right away. Thank you.
Bring your stuffies to church. It's the best thing ever. Thank you, Megan. Once again, welcome to this new day. You know, every week we light our chalice, symbol of our Unitarian Universalist faith. It is a beautiful reminder that no matter how many jarring events might happen over the course of a week, the gathered community that is West Shore Unitarian Universalist Church is a source of stability and meaning that we can all depend on. I will now say our chalice lighting words, and then West Shore member Mary Jo Maish will lead us in lighting the chalice in her home and saying our unison affirmation words. We'd like to feature a different West Shore member doing this every Sunday, so if you are interested, please reach out to our worship tech guru, Christine Solante. And now, our chalice lighting words. This is our chalice. In many separate rooms, we light one flame, flame of passion, flame of compassion, flame of humor, flame of style. We do not accept merely surviving. Let our mission be to thrive.
Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. El amor et el espíritu de esta iglesia, y el servicio suele, este es nuestro magnífico camino, vivir juntos en paz, buscar la verdad en el amor, y ayudarnos los unos a los otros.
So may it be. And now we turn to our time of greeting. We greet each other in the midst of our joys and struggles, some of which are personal, but others of which are public. And so we welcome in February, which is Black History Month. Of course, we want to be learning about Black history all 12 months of the year. So may we experience this month with its special emphasis as motivation to keep on learning and growing in our appreciation of how Black lives matter. Consider this video that speaks to where Black History Month comes from and why it is still vitally important.
Today is the first day of Black History Month, and we want to take a moment to discuss the origin story of the month itself. In 1926, historian and author Dr. Carter G. Woodson initiated the first Negro History Week, selecting a week in February that included the birthdays of Frederick Douglass and Abraham Lincoln, two key figures who played prominent roles in a particular aspect of Black history, the quest to end slavery. The era of the first Negro History Weeks was one of massive change for Black Americans, many of whom had fled dire living conditions in the South for factory jobs in the North, where they'd soon find themselves in sometimes ugly battles for available blue-collar jobs with white ethnic immigrants from parts of Europe, like Italy and Ireland and Germany. The Harlem Renaissance was in full swing, and soon the Jazz Age would be too, creating an era of epic Black cultural achievement. And yet, racism touched nearly every aspect of Black life. And soon would come the anti-lynching movement that led to the Civil Rights Movement and eventually the passage of the Civil Rights and Voting Rights Acts. President Gerald Ford officially recognized Black History Month in 1976, the year of America's bicentennial. Now, I was still in elementary school, where Denver Public Schools would bus us to this downtown program that encouraged us to celebrate ourselves and multiculturalism once Black History Month was a thing. Before that, the place we got the most affirmation as Black kids was often on Sesame Street. and from Black history icons like the Reverend Jesse Jackson.
My clothes are different. My face is different. My hair is different. But I am somebody.
I am somebody. A simple yet vital lesson, which was also the crux of Sojourner Truth's message in her famous speech about Black and women's rights in 1851. Much has changed since that speech in Akron, but so much has not. Our children are still dying. 60 years after Emmett Till's killers were acquitted by an all-white jury, Tamir Rice, an unarmed 12-year-old child, was killed by a white police officer. The drive to erase Black history continues. A bill has been introduced in the Mississippi Senate that would withhold state funds from any school teaching from the 1619 Project. Lincoln and Douglas would roll in their graves. Black Americans are getting vaccinated at lower rates than white Americans. GOP voter suppression efforts are ramping up in Georgia and Arizona and more. And still, video after video of Black men and women and children getting killed or abused by police. Progress isn't always linear. It can feel fragile and reversible. It's why we witnessed a white supremacist mob attacking our Capitol 2 weeks after the first Black woman vice president took her oath and 1 day after Georgia elected its first Black and Jewish senators. There is still so much work to do. Our need for an intensive self-examination when it comes to race didn't stop in November 2020 or November 2008 or in 1976. So let's honor the father of Black history by calling for action well beyond February 28th, while uplifting Black excellence and Black joy this day and the next. Happy Black History Month.
Let us indeed honor the father of Black History Month, Dr. Carter G. Woodson, and all the fathers and mothers and parent figures. Let us uplift Black excellence and Black joy in not just this month, but every month. You are also invited to consider some ways to do this by checking out the NAACP's website and its article, 28 Ways to Celebrate Black History Month. Check your weekly newsletter for the link. And now we turn to a more personal sharing of names and news that people have asked to be shared. First of all, a very warm happy birthday to a number of the senior members of our congregation, age 80 and above. Shirley Heck, Joan Peterson, Charlie Farrell, Judy Neighbors, and Linda Blazer. Happy birthday to these beautiful people. Erica Polisi is currently at the care center at Kendall, so we are keeping her in our thoughts and prayers. Also in our thoughts and prayers are Jerry Nazel and his partner David Prock on the death of Jerry's brother, Bruce Nazel, age 71, of Sydney, Ohio, who died February 6th after years of coping with Parkinson's disease. Cards and notes would be welcomed by both Erica and Jerry. Please contact the church office for address information. Let each of us now say the names of people whom we are holding in our personal thoughts and prayers this morning, people in our West Shore community and people beyond. Wherever you happen to be, say into the space of your room these names. You may even type the name into our West Shore Facebook chat if you like. I'll pause for a moment as we do this. This has been our greeting time when we are called out of our 24/7 ordinary world into a dedicated and intentional time of peace and blessings. In the special time and space of this worship, we are giving shape and form to our highest values of freedom and love and generosity, and we are rededicating ourselves to them. So let us now sing our first hymn of the day. wish I knew how it would feel to be free. I wish I could break all these chains holding me. I wish I could say all the things I could say. Say 'em loud, say 'em clear, for the whole world to hear. Say 'em loud, say 'em clear, for the whole world to hear. I wish I could share all the love in my heart. Remove all the bars that still keep us apart. I wish you could know what it means to be me. Then you'd see and agree everyone should be free. Then you'd see and agree everyone should be free. I wish I could give all I'm longing to give. I wish I could live like I'm longing to live. I wish I could do all the things I can do. Though I'm way overdue, I'd be starting anew. Though I'm way overdue, I'd be starting anew. I wish I could be like a bird in the sky. How sweet it would be if I found I could fly. I'd soar to the sun and look down at the sea. Then I'd sing 'cause I know how it feels to be free. Then I'd sing 'cause I know how it feels to be free.
Good morning. I'm Grace Durfee, your worship associate. I am normally pretty even-keeled and optimistic. I tend to be resilient, quickly bouncing back from upsets or negativity. But every now and then, something triggers a downward spiral. The last time I sunk into despair was last summer, June 22nd to be exact. This was the day that our older son Sam got married. You would think that this would be a joyous occasion, especially since we adore his gal. Instead, I was crushed since they got married without us. We would have happily dropped everything to make the 11-hour drive to witness their marriage. Rationally, I understood how COVID was wreaking havoc with wedding plans everywhere. The Sams, as we call them, since he is Sam and she is Samantha, had already postponed their original date of June 20th to October 10th. They were beginning to doubt if it would even be safe by then for 100 guests to gather. I could understand why they just wanted to go ahead and legally marry. Emotionally, however, I was a mess. I cried for 3 days. I was upset that they hadn't asked us to be there, especially when her mother, who lives nearby, crashed the ceremony and later shared photos. Then I began to realize that I was operating from a place of drama. According to Alan Seal's 4 levels of engagement, drama is the lowest level. At this level, you are stuck in victim mode, and others are to blame. I was hurt and fanned the flames of my drama by sharing my story with friends and neighbors who were all equally as shocked. This justified my anger and helped me lick my wounds, but did nothing to help me heal. After a day or two, I began to move to the next level, that of situation. At this level, there's an acceptance of reality and a desire to fix it. I moved into action, calling and emailing to cancel previously reserved hotel blocks and indefinitely postponing rehearsal dinner reservations. I also started wondering what I could do to work through my awful feelings. I recognized that I had a choice, which just happens to be the third level of engagement. I could choose to hold on to my hurt or begin to move on. I had seen the pain of family rifts. My German host parents had a similar experience when their daughter eloped. That was the beginning of a rocky relationship that eventually led to estrangement. I didn't want this to happen to us, and I was willing to make sure it didn't. So I took an opportunity. That's the fourth and highest level of engagement, to create open, heartfelt communication. I remembered a love letter technique that John Gray, the author of Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, recommends for processing emotions. With this approach, you write about your feelings using prompts. I carefully composed a long email to Sam, beginning with, I am upset, I am hurt, I am sad, and moving to, I hope, I wish, and I love. The act of writing and refining this love letter felt quite healing. And I was touched by the thoughtful response I got back right away from him. He also accepted my invitation to talk, and that helped to clear the air. A day or two later, we had a long conversation, including spouses, where everyone shared and felt heard, understood, and loved. In October, the Sams bought an old farmhouse in Hopkinton, New Hampshire, and we helped them move in and get their rental unit ready for a tenant. We also joined them for Christmas, which was an especially exciting visit because they had just gotten a puppy. We are all still hoping that they'll be eventually able to have the wedding and reception they'd planned, but their life is moving on, and we're happy to be a part of it. I am grateful that we worked through this drama and situation to get me out of despair and our relationship back onto solid ground.
Thank you, Grace. For our call to the offering today, I want to let you know about something very special coming up. It's called the New Day Rising National Conference, and it's coming February 27th. It's on Zoom. More information about it is available in this week's weekly newsletter, but what I can say here is that it's an opportunity for UU congregations from all across America to share how they're doing racial justice work, to share their learnings, hopes, and next steps in their quest for racial equity in their congregations. The format will be TED Talk-like, with testimonials from selected congregations. And guess what? Ours is one of those congregations. Our very own Mary Jo Maish and Dorothy Fowler will tell our West Shore story about the Widening the Circle program that they led this past late summer and fall. Yay, Mary Jo and Dorothy and all the other West Shore folks that made this program possible. So exciting. West Shore is indeed a rallying point for great things. And as always, I am grateful for your generosity that makes this community possible and supports initiatives like that of Mary Jo's and Dorothy's. Let me also say that there is a fee for participating in the New Day Rising National Conference, a sliding scale between $20 and $50 per person. And I want everyone to know that at West Shore, we never want a lack of money to be a barrier to people's ability to participate in anything important like this. This is one of the reasons why we have the Minister's Discretionary Fund. When you give to support the Minister's Discretionary Fund, you empower me to help those who otherwise could not participate in such things as the New Day Rising National Conference. Thank you for that. So, if you would like to participate, but the fee poses a hardship for you, let me know, and it will be strictly confidential between us. Again and again, so many good things are possible when we are generous with our giving. And now, if you would like to offer West Shore a special financial gift, please follow the text instructions on your screen. Yet another blessing of this community is the healing power of music. The inimitable Dave Blaser is about to play a piece by the legendary African-American jazz pianist, Errol Garner. This is Misty. Be a meditative moment of peace and beauty. Close your eyes if you wish and follow my voice. Take a deep, relaxing breath in. Oh, and let that breath go all the way out, all the breath, letting it out. Let's do that one more time. Breathe in deeply. Let all the tension drain away as you exhale. Earlier, we sang these words together. I wish I could be like a bird in the sky. How sweet it would be if I found I could fly. What in you feels like this bird? Is there something in you that wants to fly? Take this image with you as now we enter into the wise silence. I begin this morning by sharing a personal story from years ago when I was a graduate student working for my master's in philosophy. This was back in the early 1990s, which was a time when my relationship with my dad was strained and strange. Once in a blue moon, when we would speak, he would ask me about how my studies in psychology were doing. And I would correct him. Dad, it's philosophy, philosophy, philosophy. That's what I would say. But he would keep on making the same mistake every time we talked. I had let him down by not going to medical school, which was his dream for me. He stopped paying much attention to my career after that. What's for sure is that I couldn't afford to forget what I was about. Graduate school was pressure-filled. The master's program in philosophy at Texas A&M University was absolutely new and still finding itself, and maybe that's why they threw their students into the deep end of teaching undergraduate classes immediately. Just a year before, I had been the student in the classroom. 1 year later, I was the professor. I had to fake it till I could make it. I learned as I went. It was intense. But even more intense was the need to identify a master's thesis topic and get to work writing it. Part of the problem was that the Texas A&M philosophy department at the time was a national leader in classical American philosophy, and it featured world-renowned scholars of Charles Peirce, William James, John Dewey, and also this guy I had never heard about before, but I would soon enough, George Santayana. There were so many possibilities to pursue. It was all interesting. But I needed to get my act together. I needed to identify a specific topic to focus on and do it quick. What was it going to be? What happened next is that I allowed ambition to solve the problem for me. I just didn't know how to listen to my life and discern my genuine interests. I just didn't have the skills back then. But I could feel ambition in the direction it suggested I take. I came to learn that achieving a PhD in American philosophy at Vanderbilt University would get attention and be distinctive. And so I had stars in my eyes about this. And it just so happened that the head of the philosophy department at Texas A&M University at the time had strong links to Vanderbilt. A plan thus unfolded in my prestige-addled mind. I would choose a topic that would require me to work with the head of the department. And this would be my ticket to the PhD at Vanderbilt, which was the department of my dreams. What ensued was a year of sheer pain. The topic that would require me to work with the head was the ethical theory, the ethical relativism of George Santayana. Boring! Oh, I ended up hating it. And by the time I finished that master's thesis, I was smoking 2 packs of cigarettes a day. And as for my relationship with the head, we were just not temperamentally suited to each other. Rather than moving me forward in my career as a philosopher, it just set me back. Worst of all was the 2020 hindsight I have now, many years later, about the treasure that was right there before me all along, which I did not claim. This treasure, the world-renowned William James scholar who also taught at Texas A&M, Professor John McDermott. William James is one of my absolutely favorite thinkers in all the world. And I could have done my master's thesis on him. The thought had actually crossed my mind, but among other things, I suspected that that world-renowned scholar, John J. McDermott, he was too busy for me. Yet I never reached out to inquire if that were in fact so. I missed my chance. And that's my story. And I offer it, as I do all my personal stories, so as to provoke you to remember and tell your own stories, and for us all to know that we are all spiritual beings having a human experience. We are all in this thing together. How easily it can happen. Ambition can put stars in our eyes, and we lose touch with who we are. Fixation on some end goal can cause us to stop paying attention to the journey, never mind enjoying it. Fear of being turned down can keep us simply from asking. Treasure is within our grasp, but we don't go ahead and grasp it. Years later, I would come across a paragraph from writer Elizabeth Gilbert, and I underlined it and I also highlighted it because really I wanted it to be inscribed upon my very heart. It's from her bestseller entitled Eat, Pray, Love. She says, "I keep remembering a simple idea my friend Darcy once told me, that all the sorrow and all the trouble of this world are caused by unhappy people. Not only in the big global Hitler and Stalin picture, but also on the smaller personal level. Gilbert continues, "Even in my own life, I can see exactly where my episodes of unhappiness have brought suffering or distress, or at the very least, inconvenience to those around me. The search for contentment is therefore not merely a self-preserving and a self-benefiting act, but also a generous gift to the world. Clearing out all your misery gets you out of the way. You cease being an obstacle, not only to yourself, but to other people as well. Only then are you free to serve and enjoy other people." And that's the quote, that's the paragraph. Just listen to the ideas that pop in it. Unhappiness as the source of sorrow and trouble for others and for oneself. The search for contentment as not selfish at all, but a form of service to others. Clearing out all your misery gets you out of the way. Elizabeth Gilbert thus introduces us to what is a key spiritual discipline: facing your misery and clearing it out, getting it out of the way, which is simultaneously the search for contentment, what she calls diligent joy. That is what we're talking about today, diligent joy. The reflection we heard a moment ago coming from Grace, diligent joy. And notice especially that diligent joy takes no spiritual bypasses. It does not bypass the hard stuff, the shadow stuff, because the only way out is through. So we begin by taking a close look at ambition and the desire for prestige, which played such a big role in my personal story of misery, and maybe it has for you too as well. You know, psychologists tell us that the desire is natural. We must know this, and I must know this as I look back at the young man I was. Desire for Vanderbilts of every kind reflect a deep impulse shaped by millions of years of natural selection directed towards winning at the game of life. And it involves impressing others, gaining their admiration, rising in relative rank. We all feel tempted to do this, even when greater authentic happiness could be found elsewhere. Political philosopher Niccolò Machiavelli recognized this hundreds of years ago when he said, "The great majority of mankind are satisfied with appearances as though they were realities, and are often more influenced by the things that seem than by those that are." Conspicuous consumption is one specific example of this. And I am particularly struck by an experiment a group of economists set up using a beverage called SoBe Adrenaline Rush. I've told this story before. It's so good, I want to tell it again. This story is originally told by Ori and Bram Brafman in their book entitled Sway, The Irresistible Pull of Irrational Behavior. Apparently, SoBe Adrenaline Rush is supposed to increase mental acuity, mental sharpness. And the scientific experiment revolves around this. To test acuity, says Ram and Ori Brafman, the researchers developed a 30-minute word jumble challenge that was administered to 3 groups of students. The first group, the control group, took the test without drinking any SoBe at all. The second group was told about the intelligence-enhancing properties of the SoBe drink. They were given that drink and asked to watch a video while the tonic had time to take effect. These students were also required to sign an authorization form allowing the researchers to charge $2.89 to their university account. We want to call these the second group of students the fancy schmancy SoBe drinkers. Finally, a third group of students given the same spiel about SoBe, but they were also told that the university had gotten a discount in that they would be charged only 89 cents for the drink. We will call this third group of SoBe drinkers the cheapo SoBe drinkers. Now, the results of the experiment are surprising, what they have to say about human nature. The group that drank the fancy schmancy SoBe performed slightly better at that test requiring mental acuity than the group that received no SoBe at all. But before we all rush out to buy SoBe with its so-called acuity-enhancing powers, it is important to note that the third group, the group who drank the cheapo SoBe, performed significantly worse than the other 2 groups. Given that exactly the same SoBe beverage was served to all the groups, we can only conclude that it was the value that the students attributed to SoBe that made the difference in their test scores. Strange as it may sound, fancy schmancy SoBe made the students smarter, while cheapo SoBe made them stupider. And that's the story that Ori and Ram Brafman share in their book. The moral? Humans are deeply susceptible to the power of prestige, so much so that we unconsciously, instinctively respond to fancy schmancy SoBe by getting smarter, and to cheapo SoBe by getting dumber. This is how vulnerable we are to the lure of prestige and to Vanderbilts of all kind. And just knowing this is medicine. If you, like me, have made choices that caused you and others hurt because you followed the lure of prestige, well, it just means you're only human. This is a nature. There is a nature in you. There is a nature in me that is millions of years in the making, and it has gravity to it. It can pull us right along with it, unless we draw on the power of awareness to recognize what is happening and to choose whether or not to comply. Again and again, we are learning that the human heart is a complicated thing, and may we embrace this with compassion. But there is more medicine to be had here, which takes the form of a warning. If you try to take shortcuts to prestige, if you go the cheapo SoBe route, if you want the luxury purse but buy the pleather knockoff instead, beware, beware. Your deep self, which is unconscious, will never be fooled. And that deep self may strike back in some self-undermining way, just as it did the cheapo Sobe drinkers in the experiment. Placebo effects are real, they are significant, and not to be dismissed. It just means that if something is truly and sincerely important for you, you must honor it with full generosity. If you skimp, even if all the world is none the wiser, your deep self knows you cannot fool your deep self, and there will be consequences. Keep this in mind as we enter into our annual pledge drive at the end of this month. We're going to formally kick it off then. If this church is truly important for you, there is only one way, really, to give until you feel good. But now we turn to a different angle on diligent joy, how we can create misery for ourselves because we can be wildly inaccurate predictors of how the changes in our lives will end up impacting us, whether for good or for ill. In my own case, I anticipated going to Vanderbilt to get my PhD as a change that would bring into my life perfect happiness. And life would be over if I didn't get in. This is what I predicted, and on this basis, I forced myself to read that yucky George Santayana and write that yucky 200-plus page master's thesis. I forced myself to do this because I thought that so much was at stake. All of us can do that as we face the future. Yet psychologist Jonathan Haidt, writing in his provocative and powerful book entitled The Happiness Hypothesis, asks us to consider something he calls the adaptation principle. The adaptation principle is simply this, that people get used to conditions that are constant in their life. Conditions that are constant in their life become like wallpaper. They are taken for granted. They're just there. Now, it is true, people are extraordinarily sensitive to changes of conditions, but after a time when things settle down, we return to our usual state of happiness. Jonathan Haidt explores this in an interesting way. He asks his readers, if I gave you 10 seconds to name the very best and the very worst of things that could ever happen to you, you might well come up with these things. Winning a $20 million lottery jackpot and becoming paralyzed from the neck down. Winning the lottery would bring freedom from so many cares and limitations. It would enable you to pursue your dreams, help others, live in comfort. Losing the use of your body, on the other hand, would bring more limitations than perhaps life in prison. You'd have to give up on nearly all your goals and dreams, forget about sex, depend on other people for help with eating and bathroom functions. Many people think they would rather be dead than paraplegic. But they are mistaken, says Jonathan Haidt. They are mistaken because of the adaptation principle. He says, the lottery winner's pleasure comes from rising in wealth, not from standing still at a high level. And after a few months, the new comforts of life have become the new baseline of daily life. The winner takes them for granted, and they have no way to rise even further. Even worse, the money might damage her relationships. Friends, relatives, swindlers, sobbing strangers swarm around lottery winners, suing them, sucking up to them, demanding a share of the wealth. But then at the other extreme, the quadriplegic takes a huge happiness loss up front. He thinks his life is over, and it hurts to give up so much of what he'd hoped for. But like the lottery winner, his mind is sensitive more to changes than to constant levels. So after a few months, he has begun adapting to his new situation and is setting more modest goals. He discovers that physical therapy can expand his horizons. He has nowhere to go but up. This is the adaptation principle at work. Life changes can definitely bring pleasure or pain, but the pain or pleasure never lasts as long as you think it will. And we return to our natural and usual state of mind. I didn't get into Vanderbilt. Okay. There was some weeping and gnashing of teeth. But then I got on with my life. My prediction about the impact of not getting in was way off base. I adapted. I moved on. Maybe this is why meditation is so powerful a spiritual discipline. Meditation is nothing special. You just sit and perhaps attend to your breath, breathing in, breathing out, breathing in, breathing out. You stay attuned to that most simple of all human functions until your attention strays. And when you realize that, you just gently redirect your attention back to your breathing. And this is decidedly neither winning the lottery nor experiencing some horrible accident, but life at its most baseline and simple. And can we be at peace with this? Can we tolerate the simple peace of meditation? The more we can be at peace when things are even keel and we are deep in a state of adaptation, that's the real ticket to expanding our capacity to be happy. Jonathan Haidt's thought experiment is important because it reminds us that it is human nature to adapt to conditions that are constant in life. The pathway there may be ecstatic, it may be traumatic, but once you get there, you adapt. And it's also important in suggesting that if you want to increase your capacity for happiness, you don't have to win the lottery. Just sit with yourself in meditation. Learn to allow peace to unfold. One of the most important things I learned during my sabbatical in 2013 was walking. Walking in the way that our transcendentalist ancestors taught. Walking and allowing the simple rhythms to soothe my body and mind. Walking to allow the sights of nature to enter into me. Walking that was unambitious and simple and peace-filled. That truly made me a happier person. And it was also on those walks that I remembered some things that I had long forgotten. One story in particular, I was 7, and I was with my dad in the garage, and he asked me to do something mechanical in nature. I went to it with my small hands. I had never done it before, and I guess I was too clumsy or too slow or something. But my dad got impatient with me, and he slapped my hands away. And he took it, and he did it himself. And I will never forget the feel of his medical school ring on my knuckles when he slapped my hands away. One day, this story emerged out of the peace of my walk. The peace of my walk made it safe for this hurtful story to emerge. And it taught me yet another reason why I have been so urgent to reach for ambition and success in my life, to prove myself by such things as wanting to get a PhD at Vanderbilt. What I'm really saying is that there really are no spiritual bypasses when we do the work of diligent joy. I needed to remember and honor that young boy who lives in me still. I can feel him. I can feel him stir in me. He is caught in a time loop where his dad gives him an assignment. He doesn't do it to his dad's satisfaction. His hands get slapped away, the hard slap of that medical school ring on his knuckles. This is the time loop the boy in me is caught in, and the situation happens again and again and again. Bad things have happened to all of us. And no one can change history. No one can change what happened. But what I can do now is remember the pain of that young boy and how it can surface when I'm feeling anxious about succeeding or scared of making a mistake. What I can do is recognize these feelings as old. What I can do is enter into that relentless time loop and disrupt it with my love for that boy and with compassion for my dad and whatever it was that led him to do something so cruel, because he was a good man. What I can do is honor my inner child's need, which is my adult need, to take all the time I require to learn something, to tolerate being bad at something, so that eventually, through lots of practice, maybe I can be good. This too is diligent joy, to know your deep parts, to gather them up in understanding and compassion and love. How you treat yourself is how you will treat others. I want to tell you the rest of my Vanderbilt story. After I finished my thesis and defended it successfully, a week before I was to have graduated, I got a call from the community college across town, Blaine College. Would I like to teach a logic class? All my future plans were up in smoke, so why not? I took to that field. I gave myself to the daily labor and to the round of the seasons. One class grew into 3 classes, 3 grew into 5, and a full-time permanent position. But most importantly, I discovered my passion for public speaking and teaching. And I realized that, for me, philosophy of religion was my thing. I was discovering my happiness. And it was also happening at the Unitarian Universalist congregation I started going to with my now ex-wife Laura and my daughter. I took to that field. I gave myself to the various opportunities that arose. I served as the board of trustees president. I led some fundraising programs. I led some worship services and taught a few religious education courses. Through volunteerism, I was discovering talents that I didn't even know I had. And I was also making friends, which led me to the third activity, which helped me recover after the Vanderbilt disaster: figure skating. Down in College Station, Texas, at the Unitarian Church, I met my future ice dancing partner, my first one. It all came as a super big shock. Part of this has to do with the fact that when I met Diane in 1996, I hadn't skated since I was a boy of 13 years old. And last I knew, serious figure skating was just for children and teenagers. Yet what I did not know was that during my many years away from the sport, a significant adult skating program had developed, including regional, national, and even international competitions. Diane knew all about it. And did I want to go skating with her? And at first I resisted. I didn't have time. I was too busy. One after another excuse kept on rolling in. But Diane and Laura kept on prodding me. And so eventually I went. And as it turns out, this was the final ingredient. I took to the field of teaching. I took to the field of church volunteerism. I took to the field of adult figure skating. And as I gave myself to all 3 of these activities, some kind of weird alchemy happened, and I found a clarity within me that I had never had before. I found a yearning to combine passion for public speaking and teaching and community building and leadership and artistry and spirituality all in one thing, and that thing was ministry. I would go to seminary. I would become a minister. That was the treasure I found. But only after giving myself to the opportunities that came my way, even though I had no clue where they would lead me. I prayed for 20 years. The great Frederick Douglass once said, but I received no answer until I prayed with my legs. The treasure is out there, but you have to let go of fixating on it. You got to let go of your imagination of what you think it is, and just give yourself to the opportunities that come your way without requiring upfront guarantees about what those opportunities may lead to. It is about praying with your legs. And this time, I did not let fear stop me from talking to the people I needed to talk to and doing the things I needed to do. I even turned down an offer to attend Harvard Divinity School with generous funding to go to a seminary that was way better suited to my family situation and to me, though far less prestigious, Meadville Lombard Theological School in Chicago. You know, when one of my friends heard this, he sent me a funny postcard featuring a huge orange orangutan wearing one of those square academic caps, you know, with the tassel hanging down one side. You wear that when you're graduating. The caption on this postcard read, "What? You haven't been to Harvard?" I looked at that pretentious orangutan again and again and again. I read that caption over and over and over. What? You haven't been to Harvard? What? You haven't been to Harvard? I laughed so hard at that postcard. I cried. And I knew deep down, not going to Harvard was truly okay by me. Amen. Let's sing our closing hymn.
Life is the greatest gift of all the riches on this earth. Life and its creatures, great and small, of high and lowly birth. So treasure it and measure it with deeds of shining worth. Mine is the brightest gift of all, its thought no barrier mars. It seeks creation's hidden plan, its quest surmounts all bars. It rains the wind, it changes the storm, it weighs out outmost stars. We are of life, his shining gift, the measure of all things. Up from the dust our temples lift, our vision soars on wings. For seed and fruit, for flower and fruit, our grateful spirit sings.
Now bring your chalice close to extinguish it as I extinguish our chalice here. And we say, we extinguish our flames, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry with us until we meet again. Coffee hour is probably starting in a moment. We had a little bit of a late start. Thank you for your patience. Coffee hour at 11:30, and I will see you at the sermon chat at 12:30 on Zoom. And now the benediction, words from the poet William Stafford. Your exact errors make a music that nobody hears. Your straying feet find the great dance, walking alone. And you live on a world where stumbling always leads home. May you know this today. May you know this week and forever. This is the world you and I live on, where stumbling always leads home. So may it be West Shore. Love, courage, cheer to you.